Hello, and welcome back to another edition of our coronavirus chats here on Neuse News. I'm your host, BJ Murphy, publisher of Neuse News and NeuseNews.com. I really appreciate everybody joining us here today. Thank you for everybody who has paid attention to all the coronavirus chats we've done over the last few weeks. Hopefully, you have found them educational and informational so that you can live more productive lives. The update this morning from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services stated that we are just shy of 7,000 cases across the country, and unfortunately, a little over 200 deaths, 7,000 cases across our state, forgive me, and a little over 200 deaths across our state as well. In Lenoir County, we have 26 cases as of this morning, and then later this morning, there was the announcement that we actually have a death now in Lenoir County. Jones County also announced today that they have close to 10 cases, and their second death they reported this morning. Greene County has 14 cases as well. So we'll continue to give those updates to you as we get them, and just keep checking back with NeuseNews.com on that. This morning, via our breaking news text alert system, we also announced that the North Carolina State Veterans Home here in Kinston has a positive case. And we learned earlier this afternoon that they've actually moved that patient from the North Carolina Veterans Home. So that patient is no longer there. Go to NeuseNews.com. You can see that full story. Also, some good news here today. Lenoir County Public Schools won a grant to help sustain their feeding program across the county. Really excited about publishing that report. So go check that out. It's on our Facebook page and Twitter as well as Instagram. And as I mentioned a while ago, for more breaking news text alert, all you simply have to do is just text the keyword NN to 484848, and you can get the breaking news text alert through our breaking news text alert system here at Neuse News. And before I get to our guest, I want to have a special public service announcement from our friends at Lenoir Community College. We're always thankful for our friends at Lenoir Community College. If you are a student and you have questions, or you are a faculty member or staff member, or you're a parent and you have a rising student who's going to be going there in the fall, please make sure you check out lenoircc.edu for all the latest COVID-19 updates for them as well. And I forgot to mention a while ago, if you haven't already, feel free to join our We Report Neuse News Facebook group. In fact, it's at wereportneusenews.com, and we monitor that group. It is not a free-for-all. It is something we want to have engaging conversations. In fact, today we posted the question that Governor Cooper announced earlier this afternoon, actually, that he'll announce information related to schools this week. And the question was, what do you think he'll say? So we just kind of leave that open-ended and kind of get an idea on some of the discussion that people want to talk about. Now I'd love to bring in our guest today. We have Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest for the great state of North Carolina. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for joining us here on Coronavirus Chat.
BJ, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, and I'm sorry it's in this type of format that we can't be across the table having a glass of water or some coffee. But look, most people are no stranger to you, but just in case they haven't met you yet, you've served as Lieutenant Governor since 2013. You serve on the State Board of Education and the Community Colleges Board, and you're also president of the North Carolina Senate. So you actually have your hands involved in a lot of the policymaking across our state. So tell us a little bit about some of the things you've been up to the last few days, and I'll kind of get into some questions here.
Well, it's just a unique time, BJ, across the board when it comes to governing and even campaigning. As you know, we're one foot in the government world as lieutenant governor, and then 1 foot in the campaign world as running for governor. So this is certainly going to be one of the most unique times for both of those things that the state has ever seen, probably the most unique time. And so you have to retool. People from the government office are working from home when they can. You're doing a lot of Zoom calls just like you do, and talking to people online and trying to get business done as much like usual as possible through those channels. And at the same time, we've suspended our campaign, which I know we'll talk about a little bit, and we just kind of retooled things a little bit. We've made some transitions, but it's a very unique time out there right now. We're spending our time, trying to encourage the governor to start to open the state again. I mean, there are a number of counties in our state that could open up right now based on their case count, and I think the people of North Carolina have been doing a noble job staying home and staying separated and all those kinds of things. But it's kind of getting desperate out there for a lot of people, and it's time to get back to work for a lot of people and get back to their livelihood and their life.
I certainly understand that balance between the policies and the politics of the day. It's been an interesting time. In fact, I've pushed some of our legislators and political leaders as well that, certainly now I would imagine you agree with the statement that now is the time for everybody working together, and let's leave a lot of the politics that we're so accustomed to in the trenches fighting, which is fine. It's part of our way of life, but let's try to leave most of that to the fall. And so it's been interesting watching that delicate balance, like watching Governor Cuomo and President Trump and Biden and Trump. It's been interesting watching that. The other day, you released a video on YouTube, and you basically stated that the toll of the virus is far beyond the physical suffering of the disease itself. What were your thoughts behind that statement?
Well, I think it's important to have up-to-date and correct data, and all the data, quite frankly. I think what we're missing is it's not that the data we're getting is always wrong. I think that some of they're just missing pieces. We've asked for certain pieces of data from the governor and his administration and from DHHS for weeks now and haven't seen any of it. Just basic things like we have 6,500-ish cases, somewhere around there, cases in North Carolina, at least as of this morning. And the question is, how many of them have recovered? A lot of those cases, we keep counting, we keep ticking up the curve and counting how many cases we have every day, but we don't take cases off when people have been recovered. In most of those counties, they will say 50 to 60% of those people with those cases have actually recovered. That's really important information. Other important data is, how many actual cases of people are there that have been hospitalized? So we may say there's 400 people in the hospital today. Over the entire course of this, how many people have had to actually use the services of the hospital so we can really track, what kinds of facility needs might we have? How many hospitals are sitting out there empty right now? There's a lot of hospitals that are actually laying people off. They're not being overloaded by any means. We can use the hospitals all across our state, not just those in the couple cities that are being impacted. Looking at the demographics of this thing, we should know by per person, not names, but by each person that's been hospitalized, what's their age, were they immune compromised by age or some immune deficiency before they got this virus? And then how many people have died using that information? What are the ages of the people that have died? And the same question about their immunity. These are just basic questions to say, okay, we know who this is impacting. We know the communities it's impacting. And how do we protect those communities, protect the people that may get this virus and may get sick or die from this, and then allow the healthy people to go back to work and go back about their lives and their livelihoods.
Yeah, so I've noticed in the reporting today that there are 7 counties that still have 0 cases. Now, granted, they're probably very rural, even more rural than the county I live in, Lenoir, and some of the counties surrounding us, Greene and Jones. And so the question is, do you keep people who are in those 7 counties restricted from practically any movement? Do they have the same policy as like Mecklenburg or Wake County? I mean, that's the conversation happening nationally. But when I look at our state level, how do you have the same policy, related to two communities who are so vastly different and dense?
Well, I think the thing that we've taken out of the equation is personal responsibility. I mean, we assume that everybody's going to do the wrong thing, so you have to have draconian measures put in place, and the government has to overreach in a lot of places, not just the state, but sometimes it's the local jurisdictions that are overreaching as well. And that's just wrong. I think we should do it the other way around. I think what we saw before the state was shut down is people were starting to distance themselves. They were certainly washing their hands a lot. People were wearing gloves. People started wearing masks. You started to see all of this happening quite regularly before we even shut things down. Businesses started to set up to protect their customers and their employees. And we need to trust American ingenuity and the American spirit. We shouldn't just assume that only government can fix this problem. Government can't fix this, but the American spirit, compassion, and people's innovative spirit, and those kinds of things, that's what's going to end up fixing this and solving this problem long term. And so, there's lots of ways to look at this, and I understand there's a lot of people that are scared and a lot of people that are fearful from this. I get that, and I'm not just discounting any of that. But this is the first time in American history where we have quarantined healthy people in America. We should have an offensive game plan now. We've gone through defense. It was a little scary there for a while. We were trying to figure out what was going on. We didn't know what this virus was. We didn't know how deadly it was going to be. We were getting these just crazy reports from the University of Washington saying 2 million people are going to die. Listen, any politician that hears 2 million people are going to die on your watch, they're going to lock the place down. That's what they're going to do. But when new information comes out and it changes daily, and you saw it changing rapidly, went from 2 million people down to 200,000 people, and just overnight, so all of a sudden the numbers were drastically changing, and we should adjust our policy decisions and our rules based on that as well. Leaders should adjust based on the information they have at hand. And right now, our leaders in our state they're really not releasing all the information they have, or if they don't have it, they need to go find it.
Yeah, and for those that are watching, we have Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest on today's show. If you have a question, feel free to drop it in the comments so we can work it in. We will. We can't promise we'll be able to get to, but we'll do our best. And if not, if you haven't done already, please make sure you share this broadcast, because some of the things Lieutenant Governor's already said and some of the things I know we're about to talk about are really important to help educate you and make sure your family is up to speed on what's going on in our community. Lieutenant Governor, speaking of the information you requested, you actually, I think it was about a week ago, you published a statement about some of those specific that you wanted to do, some of the specific things about patients that you thought we could do without identifying the patients. Let's talk a little bit about the testing side of this, because one of the things that the president talked about in his 3-phase reopening was the testing. So where are we with more access to testing in our state?
I really don't know, BJ. Again, that hasn't been released. The governor has said he wants to do that, and then he is looking to the federal government to provide tests and to do this for him. And that's really kind of a wrong approach, whether we're talking about PPE, personal protective equipment, or we're talking about tests, preparedness. This is the state's responsibility. As governor, he needs to step up and he needs to go take care of these things. There's no excuse to not have PPE. There are people in our state that are making this gear and equipment for other people around the country right now. We should go and have those people making this equipment for us. There are plenty of people doing testing out there, all kinds of testing. We should be doing antibody testing so that we know what actually exists out there in the community and how far this has already spread, so we don't overreach into the future, coming into the fall and those kinds of things when the virus starts to return again. There's a lot of these things that are they're not easy things to do, but they're things that our state should be responsible for. We shouldn't, as a sovereign state responsible for ourselves, we shouldn't be relying on the federal government for these things or anybody else. We need to take care of our own backyard. Just like I would say to any family, you need to be prepared in a time of an emergency. More people will be more prepared after this virus emergency than they were prior to that. And so we need our families need to be prepared, our communities need to be prepared, our cities need to be prepared, and our state needs to be prepared too. And then let the federal government prepare, but let's not wait on them to provide the things we need for our citizens.
Yeah, and you referenced some businesses in North Carolina that are manufacturing PPE. I know we've got one or two in our backyard, but when we talk about PPE, it's such a broad spectrum, from everything from gloves to masks to aprons, you name it. And when I think about, where we are with that supply chain, I'm kind of curious why when I go to Amazon or Walmart or even a local entity here, why we're still not seeing our stocks, our shelf stocked with it. And then I started thinking about, well, the truth is, I don't know if I've even seen the Commerce Secretary front and center in a lot of these conversations. What is happening behind the scenes with the communication with our manufacturing industries in trying to help us get this PPE out?
I don't know. I mean, I've talked to manufacturers. I've had manufacturers call me. We've passed things on to the state government through different entities, whether it's the emergency operations leadership or through Health and Human Services. And most of the people I've put in contact haven't even heard back from them. At least that's what they tell me. So I don't know. I'm the lieutenant governor. I'm obviously politically running against the governor, but I don't get any information, BJ. It's not provided. And I'm not really a part of those conversations. But these companies in North Carolina are making this equipment all over the country. They're making it and they're selling it to the people that are buying it. Obviously, they want to, they're in the business of making money as well. So they're selling to the people that are willing to purchase it. Other states are obviously purchasing it. And probably like you and most people you probably know, I've gotten just dozens and dozens of emails and texts and phone calls from people saying, we have all this PPE that we are ready to sell. We're ready to get to North Carolina. All you got to do is get us in touch with the right people. So I just don't see that being a big issue. I see that obviously being a football that's been punted somewhere, but that equipment does exist out there, and we should have it already in North Carolina.
Well, and I know I've seen a few questions because I want to talk about the reopen on the reopen NC movement, because I've seen a few questions about when a hairstylist is going to be able to go back, and what about the kids and those sorts of things related to schools. Let's talk a little bit about this reopen NC movement. For those that aren't familiar with it, in just a matter of days, even just a few short weeks, this Facebook group started from 0 to well over 50,000 members. I've seen articles from Charlotte Observer. I've seen them on National News Network. And actually, we have the founder of that organization coming on this very chat on Thursday. That's something we haven't announced yet. So we're going to have Ashley Smith on this program Thursday at 4 o'clock. Talk to us a little bit about what you think needs to happen to actually, quote, reopen NC.
Well, I mean, I think what you're just seeing is pent up anxiety and frustration about being shut in at home. It's obviously bound to happen. I don't think at the time when this started, I think most Americans were like, okay, we'll all do our part and we'll play our role here. And then they started to see information change and they started to get new data. And then they started to look at this going, okay, well, I think we can probably be responsible for ourselves. And we can probably get back to work. And so I think what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to see a phased approach to this. Obviously, the people that are elderly, the people that are immune compromised, and there's a lot of those in different ways out there. Sometimes folks with cancer, sometimes it's folks with Down syndrome. I mean, there's lots of different variations of that. People need to stay safe. They need to keep themselves safe. And then you need to allow people to start to go back to work. You use the example of a hairdresser. Well, both the hairdresser that's cutting the hair and the person that's getting their hair cut has personal responsibility to take care of themselves. So if either one of them, is sick or doesn't feel good or anything else, they probably shouldn't be there. And if the person that's getting their hair cut wonders about the person that's cutting their hair, they probably shouldn't go. That's just part of it. And it's going to take a long time for this economy to ramp up because of that. People are going to be a little cautious of going back to a restaurant again for a while, but open them up slowly. Start with 50% capacity or occupancy and allow the restaurants to prove that they can do it in a healthy and safe way until people start to get some comfort with it. But there's just pent up anxiety. That's what the protest is about. I talked to the leaders of the protest yesterday on Zoom and just encourage them, to just keep everything peaceful and keep everything safe and obey the rules that are out there that the people place forward to stay separated and do all the things to prove to the people of North Carolina. They're just trying to share their story about why it's important to return people's livelihoods. BJ, there's a whole lost conversation in this that we've spent all of our time for months talking about the impact of the virus itself, the sickness from the virus and the death from the virus. there is a residual impact that really focuses on the unemployed as well. You're talking about people that have lost their livelihoods. People will be taking their lives. Historically, 1% of the people that are unemployed commit suicide. If there's a million people in North Carolina, you're going to have a lot of people committing suicide. If there's 30 million people in America, you will have a lot of people committing suicide, getting addicted to opioids again. Opioid addiction is a massive thing, but lock them in their home for a period of time, and with too much time in their hands, they're going to have drug addiction, alcohol addiction, domestic violence, all kinds of abuse issues. All these are going on behind the scenes right now. We need to pay attention to the entire cost of the virus and what's going on around it, including people losing their own livelihoods.
Right, and you've spoken to a subject that we've talked about here on this show. It's something I want to do again in the near future, and that is the status of mental health. And let's talk about, to that degree, the mental health of our young people in terms of the routine. They've been really upended from not just the school environment of actual learning, but the social aspect of being around their friends. I've got 2 young daughters, and I've witnessed that. One's in middle school, one's in elementary school, and I'm seeing that firsthand, what they're doing and how we're trying to encourage their own Zoom meetings so they can chat with friends. What do you anticipate some of the lessons learned out of this with your role with the State Board of Education and community college, and how we're going to use technology going into the next school year and how that might be implemented?
Well, I think there's a million lessons learned related to schools and education. Some schools are doing extremely well. We have a lot of charter schools that are doing extremely well. We have some traditional public schools that are doing well. We have some entire school districts that aren't really adapting quite so well to this. So it's all over the board. I think the teachers want to teach. Most of them have the tools in their hand to do it, but there's a lot of confusion because of the speed with which this all hit and how fast it came up. We were doing digital learning in the classrooms, and we were starting to move to more of a competency-based model in a lot of classes. And I think this will catapult us in that direction to some degree. I think we have a lot of work to do to make sure that people truly are prepared, whether that is having the content, the curriculum to use, the devices in the hands of the kids, the last mile connected so people can connect at home and those types of things, or just the tools available for teachers to be able to put content and curriculum on devices so kids can continue to learn. But the responsibility of education still falls in the hands of the parents, and that's lost a lot. A lot of people have transitioned to think that education is the responsibility of the government only, and it's not. The parents have to be engaged. Good schools have parent engagement. Good teachers have good parent engagement and involvement in their classrooms, and that's really important for us to have a good education system. So there are so many lessons here, BJ. I sit on the State Board of Education, as you mentioned. We have meetings a couple times a week online now, just trying to navigate all the things that are going on between the federal government and the state government and the local governments and the schools. It's mind-boggling, but I think we'll make massive progress for the future through this.
And do you think, Lieutenant Governor, that there's a chance kids will go back to school once the May 15th order is rescinded or fully executed?
I don't know, BJ. I think that's going to, probably come down to the governor making that decision again. I would like to see us get back to school. I think there's a lot of school left. I think, it's one of those things where there's still a good 2 months left for kids to be educated, and education should be one of our top priorities right now. So I think there's plenty of time to do that. We've already proven that these young people are not susceptible to this virus, and not as susceptible to the virus. And herd immunity is okay through kids. Historically around the world, that's been the case, and that's what the doctors say. So I think it would probably be a good thing to get back to school. Whether that will happen or not, I don't know. And we'll probably know it within the next couple of weeks.
Let's talk about one other thing real quick before we kind of wrap things up. And certainly, again, I really appreciate your time, Lieutenant Governor. Everybody watching is Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest. He's been serving our state since 2013. One other question I've got is, let's talk a little bit about the unemployment side. I know there was information about how inundated the unemployment system is. We don't even talk about how much money we're talking about yet and how that might affect our state, because we don't print money like the federal government does. We operate on a balanced budget. So let's talk a little bit about the unemployment system and how we can help more people through that.
Well, it's a mixed bag, BJ. Again, I think that a lot of people sit back and rely and wait on the government to fix a lot of the challenges that exist out there. That, most likely with all government solutions, there's going to be a lot of disappointment because a lot of these things government doesn't do too well, and they don't always think through them so well. Here in North Carolina, just the other day, we had 625,000 people that were unemployed trying to file for unemployment. And at that time, only a couple 100,000 were able to get through to the system, either by phone call or online. And so the system wasn't prepared for it. It's one of the issues that we brought up when the governor was ready to shut down restaurants and shut down the state was this very thing was, wait a minute, you're getting ready to turn off a massive component of the economy here, which means a lot of people are going to be unemployed. Are we ready for this? Or, is everything ramped up for this? Apparently it wasn't. And it's taken weeks to try to get it ramped up. So there's a hole here. I think this is one of those places where that wasn't handled very well. A lot of people are left out in the dark because of that. And so, part of it is how much money gets infused from the federal government. There seems to be endless money up there being handed out. Obviously,
right.
Government shut the economy down. And so most of these people are without their jobs to no fault of their own. A lot of these business owners are shutting down to no fault of their own because they were told to do it. And so the moral right thing to do is for people to help them get back on their feet again and try to get the economy up and going again. So it's kind of a mixed bag out there, BJ. There's a lot of people that fall through the cracks. That's something folks don't know too. There's people that don't qualify for unemployment. And I've known quite a few of them. And I actually have some friends that don't qualify for unemployment and they have no money. They have no revenue. They have no income. They still have to pay their house payment and their light bills and everything else. So, one of the things that my wife Alice and I have been doing is we've been going around the state trying to help people. We've been doing this for about a month now. Restaurants and small business owners and employees who have been hurting. We're trying to give them financial help through our campaign. We're just trying to give them a hand up, trying to give them encouragement through this. It's a tough time. The stories are heartbreaking.
Talk about
it's tough.
Yeah, the Yadkin Tribune actually had an article about something y'all did. It was the Yadkin Valley Strong. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, there's a lot of these groups out there. Yadkin Valley Strong was one that was actually proactive. This was a private group. Yadkin Chamber of Commerce set up a group to help their community in time of need. And they did this years ago, and they've just started investing in it and having people donate to it so that when a rainy day did come, they could actually help their citizens that were hurting out there. And so we got wind of this early on, and we went out there and we donated some money to Yadkin Valley Strong so they could help their citizens. We've donated money to a lot of different food banks and charities like that. And a lot of, like I said, restaurant owners that are trying to hang on. Some of these restaurant owners are trying to feed their employees that they've had to furlough. They're trying to feed their communities. They're trying to feed first responders and healthcare workers, and they have no income of their own. So we've tried to shore them up a little bit, help them make payroll and things like that. It's just basic stuff that you want to do for your neighbor. But one of the challenges of being locked down and locked inside your house, BJ, is you don't always know what's going on around you. And so when you get out there and you start to see it and you start to hear the stories, again, these stories are heartbreaking stories. There are people that have built their businesses over decades, and some people had hundreds, dozens and hundreds of employees, and they just had to let them all go. People like family to them, and it's tough, and it's going to take a long time to get this ramped up.
Well, in our closing, what kind of final thoughts would you like to give to people? Some positive outlook on business or life or health? What would you like to close with today?
Well, BJ, my opinion is we're getting real close to getting life back to normal. I don't like the term the new normal. I think there's going to be some changes for a period of time, and we'll keep staying distance, and some people work from home, and it'll take a while to get back to normal. But I want to get back to the American normal, the way life used to be. I want to see stadiums packed with people where they can go and enjoy a ball game and get rid of the cares of the world and high five each other when they don't know whether they're Democrats or Republicans sitting next to them, and enjoy things like that, enjoy movies and entertainment. I want to see that. I want to see people get back to church where they can go worship with their friends and their family and do that the way we used to do it. I don't want to see us create some kind of new government-controlled society where, every time anything starts to go bad, the government steps in and tells us how to order and structure and live our lives. This is America. We need to be able to live our lives the way we see fit, as long as we're doing that responsibly. And I think the American people are responsible people, and I think they can take care of themselves. So I want to get back to the normal the way it was. And I think that's coming faster than most people realize, BJ.
Well, look, Lieutenant Governor Danforth, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the time you and your wife Alice give to our great state of North Carolina. We really appreciate your service, and I wish you the best. Stay healthy, please, for all of us here back east.
Thank you. Same to you, BJ. Thanks for having me on. I hope to get to see you in person real soon.
Well, you saw it here, ladies and gentlemen, right here on Neuse News Coronavirus Chat. We had Lieutenant Governor Danforth here today. Really thankful for his time, and also thankful for you. I was trying my best to listen intently to what he was saying, and also monitoring some of the chatter to kind of get a sense of what everybody was wanting. That's part of the reason why we had the discussion about the schools there at the end, because we're always trying to figure out what it is that you want to learn more about and have some of the right guests on to answer some of these questions. So I'm sorry that we didn't get to all the questions, but we tried the best we could to at least get to some of the major topics here. And I saw a handful of you do something that's unique, something that's new, that only started a little over a week ago for us. And it's something called contributing a star or giving stars. When you look in the comment section, there is a little star there. Basically, what it is it's a small way that Facebook has set up for Neuse News to actually get rewarded, I guess, in a sense, from everybody that's watching. So basically, you buy a packet of stars and you can give us some, you give other people some. But look, thank you to Michael Chastain, Jennifer and Brian Wade, Linda Gardner, Tracy Ginn, Chrissy Rouse, and I hope I didn't miss anybody. Thank you so much for giving us stars today. I saw them as they came across. I just want to say a special thank you. Make sure you sign up for our breaking news text alert. Text the keyword NN to 484848. Join us on our Facebook group, WeReportNeuseNews.com. And thank you to Aletha Throw, our VP of Operations, for helping to monitor the chat on social, as well as Dr. Travis Town behind the scenes on our live stream studio. So again, thank you all for watching, and please make sure you wash your hands.